The thunderous crash of metal against rock echoed through the endless blue expanse, a symphony of chaos that marked the end of Zara's world as she knew it. She, the daring explorer from the shimmering spires of Zorath, had always dreamed of charting the unknown stars, her sleek vessel slicing through the void like a silver arrow. But dreams could shatter as easily as hulls, and now, as the smoke cleared and the acrid scent of burnt circuits filled her nostrils, Zara found herself sprawled on a sun-baked shore, her body aching from the impact. Her hair, a cascade of ethereal white that caught the light like fresh snow under twin suns, was matted with sand, and her form-fitting suit crafted from the finest iridescent fabrics of her homeworld, hugging her curves in a way that blended elegance with allure tore slightly at the seams, exposing glimpses of her pale, luminous skin. She pushed herself up, her pointed ears twitching at the unfamiliar sounds, the rhythmic crash of waves, the distant cry of strange birds, the whisper of wind through alien foliage. Zorath, with its crystal cities and harmonious symphonies of light, felt like a distant memory now. Her mission to scout uncharted planets for resources that could save her dwindling empire had led her here, to this forsaken speck in the cosmos. Earth, they called it in the old star maps, a blue jewel teeming with life, but this island. It was a forgotten paradise turned prison, ringed by treacherous reefs that had claimed her ship. As Zara staggered to her feet, her sharp eyes scanning the horizon, she spotted him, a figure emerging from the tree line, broad-shouldered and rugged, his clothes tattered from what looked like his own ordeal. He was human, or so he appeared, with sun-kissed skin, dark hair tousled by the breeze, and eyes that held the depth of stormy seas. Jax, he would later introduce himself, but in that first moment he was just a stranger, a potential threat or ally in this wild unknown. He moved with a predator's grace, his muscles rippling under his shirt as he approached, carrying a makeshift spear fashioned from driftwood. "Are you hurt?" His voice rumbled low and steady, cutting through the haze of her confusion. It was a language her translator implant rendered perfectly, though laced with an earthy accent that made her heart skip, a curious sensation for one accustomed to the emotionless precision of Zorathian speech. Zara's hand instinctively went to her side, where her energy pistol should have been, but it was gone, lost in the wreckage. She straightened, her gamine ears perking up, trying to project the poise of a royal scout despite the vulnerability gnawing at her. I am Zara of Zorath," she said, her voice melodic, like chimes in a gentle wind. "My vessel has failed. Who are you? How did you come to this place?" Jax's gaze lingered a fraction too long on her form, not in a leering way, but with a mix of curiosity and something deeper, almost protective. He set down his spear, raising his hands in a universal gesture of peace. "Name's Jax. Was on a fishing boat that got caught in a storm washed up here a couple days ago. Thought I was alone until I heard that explosion. Looks like we're both stranded now." The word stranded hung in the air like a curse. Zara's mind raced, her tech was advanced, but without power, it was useless. The island stretched before them, a lush tapestry of palm-like trees, vibrant flowers that pulsed with unfamiliar bioluminescence, and cliffs that dropped into churning waters. Dangers lurked, shadowy shapes in the underbrush, the rumble of distant thunder promising more storms. Yet, in Jax's presence, there was an odd comfort, a raw strength that her people, with their reliance on machines, had long forgotten. As the sun dipped lower, casting golden hues over the beach, they worked together in uneasy silence. Jax showed her how to gather coconuts, cracking them open with effortless strength, the sweet water quenching her thirst in a way that felt almost intimate. "Drink up," he said, handing her a half, his fingers brushing hers. A spark jumped between them, not literal, but something electric, making her skin tingle. On Zorath, touch was rare, reserved for rituals. Here, it was survival's demand. Night fell swiftly, a velvet blanket studded with stars that mirrored her homeworld's constellations but twisted into foreign patterns. They built a fire from dry fronds, the flames dancing like mischievous spirits. Zara sat across from him, her suit's fabric shimmering in the firelight, accentuating the graceful lines of her body. She caught him glancing again, and for the first time, she felt a flush creep up her neck, not fear, but intrigue. Humans were primitives in the galactic archives, yet this one exuded a quiet power, a heroism that stirred stories she'd heard in whispers, tales of earthlings who defied odds, who turned weakness into triumph. "Tell me about your world," Jax prompted, leaning back on his elbows, his voice wrapping around her like warmth from the fire. Zara hesitated, then spoke of Zorath's towering crystal spires, where love was a calculated alliance, not this raw, pulsing thing she sensed brewing. As she talked, Jax listened intently, his eyes reflecting the flames, hiding secrets she couldn't yet fathom. Little did she know, beneath that human facade beat the heart of a shapeshifter, a being forged in ancient Earth experiments, capable of becoming anything to survive or protect. The first storm hit at midnight, winds howling like banshees from the void. Zara's shelter, a hasty lean-to of branches, trembled under the assault. Rain lashed down in sheets, soaking her to the bone, her white hair plastered against her skin. Panic rose in her chest, her tech had failed her, the emergency beacon silent. Then Jax was there, pulling her into a deeper cave he'd scouted earlier, his arm around her waist strong and unyielding. "Stay close," he murmured, his breath warm against her ear. In the darkness, their bodies pressed together for warmth, her curves fitting against his solid frame, in a way that sent unfamiliar heat coiling through her. It was necessity, she told herself, but as the storm raged outside, a different tempest brewed within. Jax's scent salt and earth, and something wild filled her senses, awakening desires long dormant in her alien physiology. By dawn the storm had passed, leaving the island glistening like a jewel. They emerged to assess the damage her ship's remnants scattered, circuits fried beyond repair. Zara's hope flickered without comms, rescue from Zorath was a distant dream. But Jax, ever the survivor, pointed to the jungle's depths. "There's fresh water inland, and maybe edible fruits. We've got to move if we want to last." As they trekked through the undergrowth, vines snagging at her elegant attire, Zara marveled at his adaptability. He navigated with ease, spotting trails invisible to her enhanced vision. Once, a massive serpent-like creature slithered from the shadows, its scales iridescent and deadly. Zara froze, but Jax stepped forward, his eyes flashing with an intensity she mistook for bravery. With a swift motion he hurled a rock, diverting the beast just enough for them to escape. "Lucky throw," he muttered, but there was more to it, a subtle shift in his posture, a hint of something primal. Days blurred into a rhythm of survival. They built a sturdier camp near a crystal-clear lagoon, where Zara bathed under cascading waterfalls, her body a vision of otherworldly beauty. Jax averted his eyes at first, respecting her space, but stolen glances built tension like a gathering storm. One evening, as they shared a meal of roasted fish, he'd caught his hands deft, and sure Zara felt bold. "You humans, you're more resilient than our records suggest. Like heroes from old myths." Jax chuckled, a deep, resonant sound that made her pulse quicken. "Myths? Nah, just stubborn. But you're like something out of a dream. Those ears, that glow makes a man wonder what else is different." His words hung heavy, laced with unspoken invitation. Zara's cheeks warmed, her pointed ears twitching. On Zorath, courtship was formal; here, it was raw, electric. As the fire crackled, she leaned closer, drawn by an invisible thread. Their hands touched again, fingers intertwining, and for a moment, the island's isolation felt like destiny. But dangers loomed. Strange howls echoed at night, shadows moving just beyond the firelight. Jax would disappear briefly, returning with fresh kills or warnings of approaching threats. Zara chalked it up to his human ingenuity, unaware that he shifted forms in secret, becoming a sleek panther to scout, a mighty eagle to survey from above. He protected her silently, his shapeshifter blood urging him to guard this ethereal being who'd crashed into his world. One afternoon, as they explored a hidden cove, Zara slipped on slick rocks, tumbling toward jagged edges. Jax lunged, catching her mid-fall, their bodies colliding in a tangle of limbs. Pressed against him, she felt his heart pounding, matching her own. "You saved me," she whispered, her lips inches from his. "Couldn't let you go that easy," he replied, his voice husky. In that embrace, barriers crumbled. She traced the line of his jaw, marveling at his warmth, and he cupped her face, thumb brushing her pointed ear, sending shivers down her spine. As the sun set, painting the sky in fiery hues, their lips met in a kiss that bridged worlds, tentative at first, then deepening with hunger born of isolation and desire. Zara's hands roamed his back, feeling the play of muscles, while Jax's fingers tangled in her white hair, pulling her closer. It was a collision of cultures, a spark that ignited passions neither had anticipated. The night unfolded in whispers and touches, the island's symphony masking their explorations. Zara discovered the thrill of human intimacy, her body responding in ways her logical mind couldn't comprehend. Jax, ever the guardian, held back his secret, fearing it would shatter this fragile bond. But as they lay entwined under the stars, the first seeds of love took root, amidst the wilderness that tested them both. Yet, the island held more secrets. As Zara slept, Jax slipped away, his form rippling into that of a wolf, patrolling the perimeter. Predators circled, drawn by the crash's echo, and he fought them off in silence, his shapeshifter essence a weapon honed by years of hiding. Returning at dawn, human once more, he watched her stir, her gamine features softened in sleep, and vowed to keep her safe no matter the cost. Their days grew intertwined, survival blending with affection. Zara taught him snippets of Zorathian lore, star maps etched in sand, while Jax shared Earth's tales of valor, painting humans as indomitable spirits. Laughter came easier, touches lingered longer, building a bridge over the chasm of their differences. But tension simmered. Zara's beacon flickered sporadically, a tease of rescue. "If my people come," she confided one evening, nestled against him, "what then?" Jax's eyes darkened. "We'll figure it out. You're not just an explorer to me anymore." As another storm brewed on the horizon, their bond faced its first true test. Little did Zara know, the greatest revelation was yet to come. The man she trusted was more than human, a shapeshifter whose powers could either save them or drive them apart. The storm clouds gathered like uninvited guests, swelling on the edge of the sky with a menacing purple hue that promised fury. Zara felt the shift in the air, a heavy humidity that clung to her skin like a lover's breath, making her luminous flesh glisten under the fading light. She stood at the water's edge, her white hair whipping in the rising wind, the elegant curves of her body outlined against the turbulent sea. Jax was beside her, his presence a solid anchor in the chaos, but there was something in his eyes tonight, a shadowed intensity that made her pulse quicken without knowing why. "We should reinforce the shelter," he said, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through her. He reached out, his hand brushing her arm, and that simple touch ignited a spark, reminding her of the night before when their worlds had collided in passion. The memory lingered, warm and insistent, her body still humming from the way he'd explored her with hands that seemed to know every secret curve, every sensitive spot that made her gasp. Zara nodded, turning to him, her pointed ears flushing slightly at the tips, a Zorathian tell of arousal she couldn't hide. "Yes, but the wind, it's coming fast." She stepped closer, drawn by the heat radiating from him, her fingers tracing the line of his chest through his torn shirt. It was meant to be practical, a check for injuries from their earlier trek, but it lingered, her touch exploratory, awakening that erotic undercurrent that had been building since their first kiss. As they hurried back to camp, the first drops of rain pattered down, cool against the feverish tension between them. Jax worked swiftly, lashing branches with vines he'd gathered, his muscles flexing in a rhythm that mesmerized her. She helped where she could, her advanced mind calculating angles for stability, but her eyes kept drifting to him, to the way sweat beaded on his skin, tracing paths down his neck, inviting her imagination to wander. On Zorath, such desires were compartmentalized, analyzed. Here, they roared like the approaching thunder, raw and undeniable. The shelter held firm as the storm unleashed its wrath, winds howling through the palms like anguished spirits. Inside, huddled under the woven fronds, they were cocooned in a world of their own. The rain drummed a hypnotic beat, and the air grew thick with the scent of wet earth and their shared warmth. Zara pressed against him, her body seeking solace, but finding something more, a simmering heat that made her breath hitch. "You're shivering," Jax murmured, his arm wrapping around her waist, pulling her flush against his side. His hand rested on the curve of her hip, fingers splaying possessively, and she felt the evidence of his own arousal pressing against her thigh. It was subtle at first, a natural response to their proximity, but it stirred a fire in her core, her alien physiology responding with a rush of bioluminescent glow along her skin, faint pulses of light that betrayed her excitement. "Am I?" she whispered, her voice husky, turning her face to his. Their eyes locked, and in that gaze, the suspense built like the storm outside, electric, charged with unspoken promises. She leaned in, her lips brushing his jaw, tasting the salt of his skin. "Or is it something else?" Jax's breath caught, his free hand cupping her cheek, thumb stroking the delicate point of her ear. That touch sent shivers cascading through her, a Zorathian erogenous zone she hadn't anticipated sharing so soon. Zara, he growled softly, the sound primal, stirring images of wild creatures in the night. He tilted her head, claiming her mouth in a kiss that started slow, exploratory, but deepened into something fervent. His tongue danced with hers, mimicking the rhythm of the waves crashing outside, and she moaned into him, her hands sliding under his shirt to feel the hard planes of his abdomen. The erotic tension escalated as the storm raged, mirroring their growing urgency. Jax's fingers trailed down her neck, dipping into the neckline of her suit, which clung to her like a second skin, accentuating her full breasts and the gentle swell of her hips. He peeled it back slowly, reverently, exposing her pale skin to the dim light filtering through the shelter. Her body glowed softly, the bioluminescence intensifying with her arousal, casting ethereal patterns on his face as he gazed at her. "You're beautiful," he breathed, his voice laced with awe, like a human discovering a star up close. His mouth followed his hands, kissing a path down her collarbone, lingering at the peak of her breast. Zara arched into him, her fingers tangling in his dark hair, guiding him as waves of pleasure built. It was suspenseful, this dance, each touch a question, each response a revelation. Would the storm reveal more dangers? Would her beacon call rescuers too soon? But in this moment, those thoughts faded, replaced by the erotic pull of his lips on her skin, his hands exploring the sensitive folds where her thighs met. She pushed him back gently, her eyes gleaming with mischief and desire, straddling his lap in one fluid motion. The friction of their bodies sent sparks through her gamine ears twitching as she ground against him slowly, teasingly. Jax's hands gripped her hips, urging her on, his own need evident in the way he hardened beneath her. "God, Zara, you're driving me crazy," he admitted, his voice rough, eyes dark with hunger. The rain intensified, a curtain of sound that isolated them further, heightening the intimacy. She unzipped what remained of her suit, letting it pool around her waist, bearing herself to him completely. Her body was a masterpiece of alien grace, slender yet curvaceous, her skin smooth and inviting, marked by faint luminous veins that pulsed in time with her heartbeat. Jax's gaze devoured her, his hands roaming freely now, cupping her breasts, thumbs circling the sensitive peaks until she gasped, her head falling back. In this erotic haze, suspense wove through like a thread of shadow. Zara sensed something unspoken in him, a hesitation, perhaps, or a secret lurking beneath his human facade. But the pull was too strong. She reached for his pants, freeing him with eager fingers, marveling at the heat and hardness that felt so perfectly matched to her desires. Their joining was slow at first, a careful exploration of differences, her body adapting with a Zorathian flexibility that allowed depths of pleasure unknown to humans. As she sank onto him, a moan escaped her lips, the sensation building like a crescendo. Jax thrust up to meet her, their rhythms syncing in a dance as old as the stars. The shelter shook with the wind, but inside, their world narrowed to touches and whispers. "Tell me what you want," he urged, his voice a velvet command, hands guiding her movements. Zara, lost in the erotic thrill, whispered back in her melodic tongue, words of passion that her translator rendered as pleas for more, deeper, harder. The night stretched on, their bodies entwined in a symphony of gasps and sighs, the storm's fury a backdrop to their passion. Each climax built suspense for the next, her bioluminescent glow flaring brighter with every peak, illuminating their faces in moments of ecstasy. Jax held her close after, his arms a protective cage, but even in the afterglow, a subtle tension remained. He shifted slightly in his sleep, as if guarding against unseen threats. As dawn broke, the storm ebbed, leaving the island washed clean, but the air hummed with unspoken questions. Zara traced patterns on his chest, her mind drifting to the flickering beacon. Rescue could come any day, pulling her back to Zorath's cold logic. Yet, with Jax, she felt alive, desired in a way that transcended worlds. Little did she know, his shapeshifter nature simmered just below the surface, ready to erupt in ways that could shatter or strengthen their bond. Their mornings became rituals of tenderness, but that day, as they foraged for food, a new shadow fell. Strange tracks circled their camp, large, clawed imprints that Jax dismissed too quickly, his eyes scanning the jungle with a predator's wariness. "Probably just some animal," he said, but his tone held an edge, building suspense like a gathering cloud. Zara pressed him, her hand on his arm, feeling the tension in his muscles. You've been different lately, protective. It's endearing, but tell me. He silenced her with a kiss, deep and distracting, pulling her against a tree trunk. The erotic spark reignited instantly, his hands sliding under her reassembled suit, fingers teasing the sensitive spots he'd learned so well. She melted into him, the jungle's humidity amplifying their heat, but even as pleasure built, a whisper of doubt lingered. Who was this man, really, who adapted so flawlessly to every threat? Their encounter was hurried, passionate, a quick release against the rough bark, her legs wrapped around him, cries muffled by the foliage. It left her breathless, sated, but the suspense gnawed. As they returned to camp, Jax's gaze flicked to the horizon, where a faint hum echoed not thunder, but something mechanical, distant yet approaching. That night, as they lay together, bodies still tangled from another round of erotic exploration, his mouth tracing luminous paths on her skin, her nails digging into his back in ecstasy, the hum grew louder. Zara stirred, her pointed ears perking. Do you hear that? Jax tensed, his arms tightening around her. Yeah, stay here. He rose, slipping into the darkness, but not before she caught a ripple in his silhouette, a trick of the moonlight, or something more. The suspense thickened like fog, her heart pounding not just from their lovemaking, but from the unknown closing in. What was out there? And what secrets did Jax harbor that could change everything? As she waited, alone in the shelter, the erotic afterglow faded into a thrilling edge of fear and desire, binding her to him even as mysteries unfolded. The hum grew insistent, vibrating through the humid air like the pulse of a distant heart, pulling Zara from the haze of their shared passion. She sat up in the shelter, her body still tingling from Jax's touch, the luminous glow of her skin fading slowly as adrenaline sharpened her senses. The night was alive with sounds, the drip of residual rain from the leaves, the rustle of unseen creatures, but that mechanical whine cut through it all, unnatural and ominous. It wasn't a storm, it was something deliberate, approaching with purpose. Her pointed ears strained, picking up the subtle whir of engines, perhaps thrusters, slicing through the island's isolation. Zara's mind raced back to her crashed vessel, the emergency beacon she'd jury-rigged with scraps of tech. Had it finally pierced the void, summoning rescuers from Zorath? Or worse, attracting scavengers, pirates of the stars who preyed on downed explorers? She wrapped her suit tighter around her, the fabric whispering against her curves, a reminder of how exposed she felt without Jax by her side. He'd vanished into the shadows with that cryptic command to stay put, his silhouette rippling oddly in the moonlight, or had she imagined it? Doubt gnawed at her, mingling with the lingering heat of their intimacy, creating a cocktail of curiosity and unease that made her skin prickle. Minutes stretched into an eternity, the hum swelling into a roar that shook the ground beneath her. Zara couldn't wait any longer, her Zorathian instincts, honed by years of scouting hostile worlds, demanded action. She crept to the shelter's edge, peering into the darkness. The jungle was a wall of inky black, but flashes of light pierced through beams sweeping like predatory eyes. Voices echoed faintly, not human, but in a guttural dialect. Her translator struggled to parse, scan for life. Signs. The signal originated here. Secure the artifact. Artifact. Her ship wasn't just wreckage, it held Zorath's latest navigation core, a prize that could shift galactic power balances. Panic surged, dramatic and all-consuming, as realization dawned. These weren't rescuers. They were raiders, perhaps from the rival fleets of Nethuria, Zorath's ancient foes, drawn by the beacon's desperate cry. Zara's heart thundered, a thrilling rhythm that echoed the climax building around her. She had to find Jax, warn him, but where was he? The man who'd become her anchor in this chaos, whose body had mapped hers with such exquisite care, now seemed a ghost in the night. A branch snapped nearby, and she whirled, her breath catching. Shadows moved, coalescing into forms, tall, armored figures with glowing visors, their weapons humming with energy. 3 of them, Nethurian hunters by the insignia on their suits, sleek and predatory like the serpents of this island. One raised a scanner, its beam locking onto her. Target acquired. Zorathian female. Alive. Secure her. The words sent a jolt through Zara, surprising in their cold efficiency. She bolted, her lithe form darting into the underbrush, white hair streaming like a comet's tail. Thorns tore at her suit, exposing more of her pale skin, but she pushed on, the thrill of the chase igniting a fire in her veins. This was no mere survival, it was a dramatic showdown, her life hanging by a thread in this forgotten paradise. Curious questions flooded her mind. How had they found her so quickly? And where was Jax, her enigmatic protector? Laser fire scorched the air behind her, singeing leaves and filling the night with acrid smoke. Zara zigzagged through the trees, her enhanced agility a gift from Zorath's bioengineered lineage, but the hunters were relentless, their boots thudding like war drums. "She's fast flanker." One barked, their voices amplified and menacing. She leaped over a fallen log, landing in a clearing bathed in moonlight, the lagoon's waters shimmering like a mirror to the stars. But there was no escape. The hunters emerged from the opposite side, encircling her with calculated precision. "End of the line, scout," the leader sneered, his visor lifting to reveal a scarred, reptilian face, Nithurian pureblood, eyes gleaming with triumph. He leveled his rifle, the barrel glowing with lethal intent. "Hand over the core, and maybe we'll let you live as a prize." Zara's back pressed against a boulder, her breath ragged, curiosity burning alongside fear. Prize? The word dripped with implications that twisted her stomach, a surprising layer of personal threat amid the galactic intrigue. She scanned for options, her pistol lost, tech fried, but then, a low growl rumbled from the shadows, deep and primal, sending chills down her spine. The hunters froze, weapons swinging toward the sound. What was that? One hissed, his voice cracking with uncertainty. The growl escalated into a roar that shook the trees, and from the darkness exploded a beast unlike any Zara had seen, a massive, furred creature with jaws like steel traps, eyes blazing with feral intelligence. It was a panther, but larger, its muscles coiled like springs, pelt rippling under the moonlight. The hunters fired wildly, bolts sizzling through the air, but the beast moved with impossible speed, dodging and weaving, a thrilling blur of motion that turned the clearing into a battlefield. Zara watched in wide-eyed astonishment as the panther lunged, claws raking across the leader's armor, sparks flying in a dramatic cascade. The Nithurian screamed, staggering back, but the beast didn't stop. It pounced on another, teeth sinking into a leg with a sickening crunch. The third hunter bolted for cover, but the panther pursued, its form a whirlwind of fury. Lasers scorched fur, drawing blood, but the creature healed before her eyes, wounds knitting in seconds, a surprising regeneration that defied biology. In the chaos, Zara's mind whirled with curiosity. This wasn't a native animal, its tactics were too strategic, its eyes too familiar. Stormy seas, like Jax's. The realization hit her like a thunderbolt, dramatic and world-shattering. This was him. Jax, her lover, her stranger, transforming into this magnificent guardian. A shapeshifter. The galactic archives whispered of such myths on Earth, ancient experiments birthing beings who blurred lines between man and monster. But here, in this thrilling climax, it was real, surprising her to her core. The leader recovered, firing a point-blank shot that grazed the panther's side, eliciting a pained yowl. Zara snapped from her stupor, grabbing a fallen branch and swinging it with all her might, cracking it across the Nithurian's helmet. He stumbled, and the panther Jax seized the moment, tackling him to the ground in a flurry of claws and teeth. Blood sprayed, the air thick with the metallic tang, as the hunter's screams cut short in a gurgle. The second hunter lay immobile, but the third emerged from hiding, weapon charged for a killing blow. "Die, freak!" he snarled, aiming at the panther's head. Time slowed, the scene a pinnacle of drama. Zara's heart in her throat, the thrill of impending loss electrifying every nerve. But Jax shifted mid-leap, his form rippling like water, fur melting away to reveal human skin, muscles, that familiar rugged frame. Naked and glorious, he twisted in the air, grabbing the hunter's rifle and wrenching it free with superhuman strength. The Nithurian gaped, surprise etching his features. "What are you?" Jax's voice was a growl, eyes flashing with otherworldly power. "Your end." He drove the butt of the rifle into the hunter's face, a crack echoing like fate's decree, sending him crumpling unconscious. The clearing fell silent, save for heavy breaths and the distant hum of the raider's ship hovering above the canopy. Zara stood frozen, her gaze locked on Jax, human once more, but transformed in her eyes. Blood streaked his skin, wounds already fading, his body a testament to hidden depths. The curiosity overwhelmed her. How long had he hidden this? Why, and in this surprising revelation, did it change the passion they'd shared, or deepen it? He turned to her, chest heaving, vulnerability raw in his expression. "Zara, I didn't want you to find out like this." She stepped forward, hand trembling as she touched his arm, feeling the warmth, the reality. You saved me again. The words hung heavy, the climax ebbing into a thrilling aftermath, questions swirling like storm winds. Who was this man, this shapeshifter, who'd crashed into her life as surely as she'd crashed into his world? But the drama wasn't over, the ship's hum intensified, spotlights piercing the trees. More hunters descended on ropes, weapons glinting. Jax's eyes hardened, a surprising resolve igniting. They're not taking you. Not while I breathe. Zara nodded, adrenaline surging anew, her trust in him solidified in this curious twist of fate. Together, they faced the onslaught, her alien grace complementing his shifting prowess. He morphed again, this time into a massive bear, roaring defiance as bolts flew. Zara dodged, using her knowledge of the terrain Jax had taught her well, grabbing a discarded laser pistol from the fallen leader. The battle raged dramatic and fierce, a climax of light and shadow. Jax, as the bear, swatted hunters aside, his form a blur of power, claws rending armor like paper. One raider got too close to Zara, grabbing her wrist with a vise-like grip. "You're coming with us, pretty thing." His leer was cut short as she fired point blank, the bolt sizzling through his chest in a surprising burst of her own heroism. Jax shifted back mid-fight, human agility allowing him to disarm another, his naked form a distracting, thrilling sight amid the chaos. "Behind you," he shouted, and she spun, blasting a sneaking assailant. Their synergy was electric, a dance of survival that heightened every sense, the smell of ozone from weapons, the taste of blood on her lips from a split, the feel of Jax's hand brushing hers in a brief, reassuring touch. As the last hunter fell, the ship above whined, engines flaring for retreat. But Jax wasn't done. He leaped, shifting into an eagle mid-air, wings spanning wide in a dramatic ascent. Talons gripped a dangling rope, pulling him up toward the vessel. Zara watched, breath held in thrilling suspense, curious if he could truly end this threat. From below she fired covering shots, bolts glancing off the hull. On board, Jax reverted to human, storming the bridge in a surprising assault. The pilot, caught off guard, fired wildly, but Jax dodged, his shapeshifter reflexes a blur. A punch, a twist, and the controls sparked, the ship listing dangerously. He sabotaged the engines with ruthless efficiency, then dove out as it plummeted toward the sea, exploding in a fireball that lit the night like a second sun. Gliding down as the eagle, he landed beside her, shifting back, collapsing from exhaustion. Zara rushed to him, cradling his head, her white hair falling like a veil. "You're incredible," she whispered, surprise mingling with awe. "Humans, primitives." No, this one was a hero, a shapeshifter whose secrets had saved them both. As dawn broke, painting the sky in victorious hues, questions lingered: his origins, her rescue, their future. The thrill of the night faded, but the bond forged in this dramatic climax burned brighter, curious paths unfolding before them. Jax stirred, eyes meeting hers. "There's more to tell," he murmured, and she nodded, ready for whatever surprises lay ahead. As the first rays of dawn filtered through the canopy, gilding the wreckage-strewn clearing in soft gold, Zara felt the weight of the night settle into her bones, not just the exhaustion from the battle, but the electric hum of unanswered questions buzzing in her mind. Jax lay there, his body a map of fading bruises and shallow cuts that knit themselves back together before her eyes, a testament to his extraordinary nature. She brushed a strand of dark hair from his forehead, her touch lingering, tender yet tentative, as if afraid he might shift away into some elusive form. "There's more to tell," he'd murmured before slipping into a brief, restorative slumber, and now, as his eyes fluttered open, meeting hers with that stormy depth, the drama of their situation intensified, like a star on the verge of supernova. Zara pulled back slightly, her white hair tousled and matted with dirt from the fray, her pointed ears still ringing from the explosions. "Jax, or whatever your true name is," she began, her voice a melodic whisper laced with a mix of awe and accusation. "You're not just a shipwrecked fisherman, that much is clear. But a shapeshifter, on Earth. Our archives dismiss such things as folklore, bedtime stories for primitive worlds." She gestured to the smoldering remains of the Nethurian ship offshore, its debris bobbing in the waves like defeated sentinels. The air still smelled of ozone and charred metal, a stark reminder that their victory was fragile, and more raiders could be en route if the distress signal had escaped. He sat up slowly, wincing not from pain, his wounds were already mere shadows, but from the vulnerability etched in his expression. Naked from his transformations, he grabbed a tattered blanket from their camp remnants, wrapping it around his waist with a sheepish grin that cut through the tension like an unexpected sunbeam. True name still Jax. No fancy aliases here. And yeah, Shapeshifter. Born with it, or cursed, depending on who you ask. His tone was casual, but his eyes held a dramatic undercurrent, pleading for understanding. He reached for her hand, but she hesitated, creating an awkward pause that hung between them like an invisible barrier. Here they were, lovers who'd shared the most intimate explorations under stormy skies, now facing each other like strangers across a chasm of secrets. Zara crossed her arms over her chest, her suit torn in places that exposed tantalizing glimpses of her luminous skin, adding an unintended layer of erotic awkwardness to the moment. Cursed, explain. And don't think a charming smile will distract me this time. She tried to sound stern, but her lips twitched, betraying a spark of humor at the absurdity her, a regal scout from Zorath's crystal halls, interrogating a naked earthling who could turn into beasts at will. It was the stuff of bad holodramas back home, where aliens always fell for brooding heroes with hidden powers. Jax chuckled, a deep, resonant sound that eased some of the drama, though it didn't dispel it entirely. All right, Princess or Scout. Picture this: ancient Earth experiments, back when humans were tinkering with DNA like kids with building blocks. Some lab in the mountains, funded by shadowy types who wanted super soldiers. Let's say I was the unintended result. Escaped, hid out, ended up on that fishing boat to lay low. Storm hits, and boom, stranded with the most gorgeous alien I've ever imagined. He waggled his eyebrows for effect, trying to lighten the mood, but the awkwardness peaked when the blanket slipped slightly, forcing him to clutch it tighter. Sorry, not exactly dressed for confessions. Zara's cheeks flushed, her pointed ears turning a delicate pink, a Zorathian reaction that only heightened the humor in the situation. She averted her eyes, but not before a giggle escaped, surprising even her. Gorgeous? Flattery won't save you from questions, Shapeshifter. But it's endearing, in a clumsy human way. She tossed him his discarded pants from the underbrush, the garment landing comically on his head like a makeshift hat. They both laughed then, a brief release amid the building drama. As if the universe had conspired to inject levity into their peril. Yet, the laughter faded as quickly as it came, replaced by a deeper tension when distant rumbles echoed not thunder, but the unmistakable thrum of engines. Jax's head snapped up, his senses sharpening in a way that now made perfect sense to her. More company. That ship must have sent a ping before crashing. We need to move, Zara. Deeper into the island there's a cave system I scouted in another form. He stood, dressing hastily, but the awkwardness lingered. How could she trust him fully now, knowing he'd hidden such a fundamental truth? And yet, the memory of his bare form swatting aside threats, his eagle wings carrying him to victory, stirred a dramatic admiration in her chest. Humans, with their messy resilience, were proving to be the heroes of legend after all. They gathered what supplies they could fruits. Jax had foraged earlier, a salvaged Nithurian rifle that hummed ominously in Zara's hands and plunged into the jungle's heart. The path grew treacherous, vines snagging at their feet, the air thick with humidity that made every step a labored effort. Drama heightened with each rustle in the foliage. Was it wind, or scouts closing in? Zara's mind whirled with curiosity about Jax's past. Had he ever loved before, in his shifting life? The thought twisted awkwardly in her gut, jealousy mingling with fear. Tell me more, she pressed as they ducked under a low branch, their bodies brushing in a way that recalled their erotic nights, sending unwelcome sparks through her. Jax glanced back, his expression a mix of regret and determination. Not much to tell without sounding like a bad novel. Grew up on the run, shifting to survive, wolf in the woods, bird in the skies. Never stayed anywhere long enough for this. He gestured between them. The awkward implication clear: relationships were complicated when you could literally become someone else. A root caught his foot then, sending him stumbling forward into a mud puddle with a splash that soaked them both. Zara yelped, slipping in turn, and they ended up in a tangled heap, mud caking her white hair and his face. For a moment, the drama paused, replaced by helpless laughter. See, even heroes trip, he quipped, wiping mud from her cheek with a thumb, the touch turning tender. But humor evaporated as a laser bolt scorched the tree beside them, bark exploding in a shower of splinters. Contact, Jax shouted, shoving her behind a boulder. The drama surged back, heart pounding and relentless. Nithurian reinforcements had landed 5 this time, more heavily armed, their reptilian features twisted in snarls as they fanned out. Fan out, find the core and the female. One barked, his voice amplified through a helmet speaker. Zara's grip tightened on the rifle, her training kicking in despite the awkward surge of fear. We can't outrun them forever, she whispered, peeking over the rock. Jax's eyes met hers, a silent promise passing between them. Then, with a ripple that still awed her, he shifted not into a beast, but something surprising, a mirror image of a Nithurian hunter, armor and all, down to the scarred face. The transformation was seamless, dramatic in its precision, but the awkward hitch came when his voice emerged in a perfect mimicry. Stay here, I'll lead them away. Wait, what if they see through it? She hissed, grabbing his arm now scaled and cold. The feel was jarring, a humorous twist on their intimacy hours ago. Those arms had held her in passion, now they were alien in every sense. He grinned, the expression odd on the reptilian face. Trust me, I've fooled worse. With that he stepped out, barking orders in the guttural Nithurian tongue. Over here, tracks lead east. The real hunters hesitated, confusion rippling through their ranks, buying precious seconds. Zara watched, breath held, the drama peaking as one suspicious raider raised his weapon. Your voice print doesn't match. Imposter? Chaos erupted. Jax dodged a bolt, shifting mid-stride into a sleek panther, pouncing on the accuser with a roar that echoed through the trees. Zara fired from cover, her shots precise, downing another as the battle intensified. The awkwardness of their situation fueled a strange humor in her mind. Here she was, allied with a man who could be anything, fighting space pirates on a tropical island. It was absurd, like a cosmic joke, but it heightened the stakes, making every near miss a thrill. Jax weaved through the fray, shifting forms to confuse panther to eagle, talons raking helmets, then back to human to grapple hand to hand. One hunter got the drop on him, slamming him against a tree with a force that cracked ribs. Zara heard the snap, her heart lurching dramatically. Jax, she cried, leaping out, rifle blazing. Her bolt hit true, but in the scramble, another raider grabbed her from behind, his arm like a vice around her waist. Lifting her off the ground. Got the prize, he snarled, his breath hot and foul against her ear. The awkward intimacy of the hold pressed against his armored bulk sent revulsion through her, contrasting sharply with Jax's touches. She struggled, her pointed ears flattening in distress, but humor struck in the absurdity. A Zorathian noble, reduced to wriggling like a caught fish. Jax, bloodied but unbowed, shifted into a massive gorilla, muscles bulging as he charged. With a mighty swing, he hurled the raider aside like a ragdoll, the impact comically sending the enemy tumbling into a bush with a yelp. Nobody touches her, Jax growled, his voice distorted but fierce. Zara scrambled to her feet, grabbing a fallen weapon, and together they finished the fight, her shots covering his brutal assaults, a symphony of laser fire and primal roars. As the last hunter fell, silence descended, broken only by their ragged breaths. Jax reverted to human, collapsing against her, the drama ebbing into exhaustion. But awkwardness resurfaced when she noticed his blanket had long since been lost in the shifts. He stood there, gloriously bare amid the carnage. Eyes up here, he joked weakly, hands covering himself with mock modesty. Zara couldn't help but laugh, the sound bubbling up despite the peril. You and your versatility. It's going to take some getting used to. She tore a strip from a fallen hunter's cloak, handing it to him as a makeshift cover, their fingers brushing in a spark that reignited the underlying tension. They pressed on to the caves, the entrance hidden behind a waterfall that cascaded like liquid crystal. Inside, the drama deepened, the walls glowed with bioluminescent fungi, casting eerie shadows that played tricks on the eye. Jax explained more as they rested, his voice echoing softly, I've never told anyone before, feared they'd see me as a monster. The vulnerability heightened the emotional stakes, awkward in its rawness, but Zara leaned in, her hand on his knee. You're no monster. You're my hero. The words felt dramatic, straight from those human myths he'd shared, but they rang true. A sudden drip from the ceiling landed squarely on his head, making him splutter, and they dissolved into laughter again, the humor a balm against the uncertainty. Yet, as they explored deeper, a new discovery awaited: ancient carvings on the walls, depicting shapeshifters like Jax, intertwined with star maps pointing to Zorath. The revelation was dramatic, curious had Earth and her world connected before. Awkward questions arose: was their meeting fate, or something engineered? Humor crept in when Jax traced a carving resembling a gorilla in a heroic pose. Hey, that's me on a good day. The cave offered shelter, but outside, the island hummed with threats. Zara's beacon flickered to life briefly, receiving a garbled message from Zorath: hold position. Fleet inbound. Drama-mounted rescue meant separation, an awkward fork in their path. Would she leave him behind, this shapeshifter who'd become her everything? As night fell in the cave, they huddled close, bodies seeking comfort amid the tension. Jax's hand traced her arm, the touch turning erotic despite the awkward surroundings: damp stone and echoing drips. Whatever comes, he whispered, pulling her into an embrace, we face it together. Zara melted into him, but doubt lingered, heightening the drama. What if her people saw him as a threat? The awkward humor of imagining Jax shifting into a diplomat to charm them brought a smile, but reality pressed. Their bond, forged in fire and passion, faced its greatest test yet, with surprises lurking in the shadows. As the echoes of Jax's whisper faded into the cave's damp stillness, Zara felt a surge of warmth spread through her, chasing away the chill of doubt that had momentarily gripped her heart. His arms encircled her waist, drawing her closer in the dim glow of the bioluminescent fungi that painted the walls in soft, ethereal blues and greens. The cave was their sanctuary now, a hidden world where the outside threats seemed distant, muffled by the steady drip of water from unseen crevices. She tilted her head back, her white hair cascading over his shoulder like a silken veil, and met his gaze, those stormy eyes that held both the wildness of his shapeshifter soul and the tenderness she'd come to crave. Together, she echoed softly, her melodic voice resonating in the enclosed space, turning the word into a promise that bridged their worlds. The air between them thickened with unspoken desires, the drama of their escape fueling a deeper connection that demanded expression. Jax's hand traced a gentle path up her arm, his fingers light yet insistent, sending shivers across her luminous skin. She leaned into him, her body molding against his with a familiarity born of their shared trials, her curves pressing softly into the hard planes of his chest. The awkward humor from earlier, the makeshift coverings, the mudded mishaps dissolved into something more intimate, a quiet intensity that made her pulse quicken. In this moment, surrounded by the cave's ancient mysteries, she wanted to lose herself in him, to affirm their bond amid the uncertainty. Zara's pointed ears twitched as his breath warmed her neck, his lips brushing the sensitive tip in a way that made her gasp softly. It was a Zorathian secret, that spot, one that amplified sensations like an echo chamber, and Jax had learned it well during their stormy nights. You've been my strength, he murmured, his voice a low vibration against her skin, his hand sliding to the small of her back, pulling her even closer. She felt the evidence of his arousal, a natural response to their proximity, and it stirred a corresponding heat in her core, her body responding with that faint bioluminescent glow that betrayed her excitement. She turned in his embrace, her hands roaming up his arms, feeling the subtle shift of muscles beneath his skin, remnants of his transformations, perhaps, but now fully human, fully hers. Their lips met in a kiss that started slow, exploratory, like rediscovering a familiar path after a storm. But as the passion built, it deepened, tongues dancing in a rhythm that mirrored the cave's dripping cadence. Zara's fingers tangled in his dark hair, tugging gently, urging him on as she arched into him. The torn fabric of her suit gave way under his touch, exposing more of her pale, glowing form, and he traced the lines of her body with reverence, his palms warm and calloused from their survival labors. They sank to the cave floor, a bed of soft moss cushioning them like nature's own invitation. Jax's mouth trailed down her neck, lingering at the hollow of her throat where her pulse fluttered wildly, then lower, to the swell of her breasts. He cupped them gently, his thumbs circling the peaks with a teasing pressure that made her moan, the sound echoing softly around them. Zara's hands explored him in return, sliding down his chest, over the ridges of his abdomen, until she reached the warmth of him, her touch light and curious, eliciting a groan from deep in his throat. It was a dance of give and take, each caress building on the last, their bodies syncing in a way that felt predestined. The cave's glow reflected off her skin, casting patterns of light across Jax's face as he positioned himself above her, their eyes locking in a moment of profound connection. I want you, she whispered, her voice husky with need, pulling him down to her. He entered her slowly, a gentle merging that filled her completely, sending waves of pleasure radiating through her. They moved together in a steady rhythm, her legs wrapping around his waist, drawing him deeper with each thrust. The sensations were intense, a blend of physical bliss and emotional depth, her bioluminescent veins pulsing brighter with every peak, illuminating their union like stars in the night sky. Jax's pace quickened, guided by her soft encouragements, his hands gripping her hips as they found a harmony that transcended words. Zara felt the build-up, a coiling tension in her core that promised release, her breaths coming in short, melodic gasps. He kissed her deeply, swallowing her cries as ecstasy washed over her body trembling in waves that matched the cave's subtle vibrations. Moments later, he followed, his own climax a powerful surge that left him shuddering against her, their foreheads pressed together in shared aftermath. They lay entwined, breaths mingling, the cave's cool air a contrast to the heat they'd generated. Jax traced lazy patterns on her back, his touch soothing now, as if anchoring them both in the present. But even in this intimate glow, Zara's mind wandered to the carvings on the walls, the ancient links between Earth and Zorath that hinted at deeper fates. "Do you think we were meant to find each other?" she asked softly, her fingers interlacing with his. He smiled, pressing a kiss to her temple. "If the stars aligned for this, I'd say yes. But whatever the reason, I'm glad." His words carried a weight, heightening the emotional drama beneath their physical connection. As they rested, the cave seemed to whisper secrets, the fungi's light pulsing like a heartbeat, syncing with theirs. Time blurred in their sanctuary, the outside world a distant rumble. They explored each other again, slower this time, savoring the details, Jax's lips mapping the curve of her hip, her hands memorizing the strength of his thighs. It was a celebration of survival, a reaffirmation of trust amid the revelations. Zara marveled at how his body adapted, even in human form, responding to her every need with an intuition that felt almost otherworldly. Their second joining was tender, positions shifting fluidly as she straddled him, controlling the pace, her white hair falling around them like a curtain. The pleasure built gradually, cresting in synchronized bliss that left them both breathless, laughing softly at the intensity. As the afterglow settled, Zara nestled against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, a steady drum that grounded her. But the drama lingered, her beacon's intermittent signals reminded her that rescue loomed, potentially tearing them apart. "What if my people arrive soon?" she murmured, tracing circles on his skin. Jax's arms tightened around her. "Then we convince them. I'm not letting go without a fight." His resolve stirred something deep within her, a mix of fear and hope that added layers to their intimacy. They rose eventually, necessity pulling them from their cocoon. Jax shifted briefly into a small creature, a luminous beetle, of all things to scout the cave's depths for water, returning with directions to a hidden spring. Zara watched in fascination, the awkward humor returning as he reverted, dripping wet and grinning. "Perks of the curse," he joked, shaking off like a dog, splattering her playfully. They bathed in the spring, the water cool and invigorating, turning the moment into another layer of closeness. Jax's hands soaped her back, the touch turning sensual again, leading to kisses under the trickle. It escalated naturally, their bodies pressing against the slick rocks, movements urgent yet careful in the confined space. The release came swiftly, a burst of passion that echoed off the walls, leaving them leaning on each other for support. Dried and dressed in what remained of their clothes, they shared a meal of foraged fruits, the cave's ambience fostering quiet conversations. Jax opened up more about his past, lonely years shifting through forms, always hiding, and Zara shared Zorath's rigid customs, where emotions were secondary to duty. Their differences only deepened the attraction, each story a bridge over the chasm. But as night deepened in the cave, time marked only by the fungi's dimming glow, a new sound intruded, faint vibrations from above, perhaps more ships scanning the island. The drama resurfaced, tension coiling like a spring. Jax's senses heightened, his body tensing beside her. "They're persistent," he muttered, pulling her close once more. In response, Zara initiated this time, her hands guiding his to her waist, seeking solace in their connection. Their lovemaking was fervent, a defiance against the encroaching threats, positions exploring new angles, sensations amplified by the adrenaline. She rode the waves of pleasure, her glow flaring like a beacon of their own, climaxing with a cry that mingled ecstasy and determination. Exhausted, but united, they slept intertwined, dreams weaving futures where worlds collided harmoniously. Yet, morning, or what passed for it in the cave, brought fresh challenges. Zara's device pinged louder, a message clarifying Fleet ETA 2 cycles. Prepare for extraction. The words hung heavy, heightening the stakes. Jax stirred, his hand finding hers. We have time. Let's make it count. And so they did, their intimacy a shield against the unknown, each touch a vow to face whatever came next together. As the faint ping of Zara's device echoed through the cave once more, confirming the fleet's approach in just 2 cycles, barely enough time to catch their breath. Jax's words lingered like a vow, igniting a fresh wave of determination in her. She pulled him closer in the dim light, their bodies still humming from the intimacy they'd shared, a shield woven from touches and whispers that fortified them against the encroaching reality. The spring's water trickled nearby, a soothing backdrop to their quiet resolve, and Zara allowed herself a moment to trace the contours of his face, memorizing the lines that shifted so effortlessly yet held such steadfast humanity. Making it count, she agreed, her voice a soft melody, leaning in for a kiss that sealed their pact. Deep and lingering, as if drawing strength from each other for the trials ahead. They emerged from the depths of the cave, as the island's day brightened, though in this timeless sanctuary, time felt fluid, marked only by the fungi's pulsing glow transitioning to a warmer hue. Jax led the way, his hand clasped in hers, their fingers intertwined in a grip that spoke volumes. The air outside was crisp, carrying the salty tang of the sea mixed with the earthy scent of jungle foliage recovering from the night's disturbances. Birds, or what passed for them on this remote speck, called out in unfamiliar choruses, their songs a reminder that life persisted amid chaos. Zara's mind raced with plans signal the fleet precisely, explain Jax's presence, convince her commanders of his value. But beneath it all simmered a quiet fear. What if Zorath's rigid protocols deemed him a security risk? A primitive anomaly to be studied or discarded. As they navigated back through the twisting paths toward their original camp, Jax paused at the ancient carvings they'd discovered earlier, his fingers brushing the etched stone with a reverence that caught her off guard. The depictions shapeshifters entwined with star maps, figures that blended human and Zorathian traits seemed to whisper secrets, and he studied them intently, as if seeing them anew. They're not just art, he murmured, his voice laced with a dawning realization that heightened the subtle drama of the moment. Zara stood beside him, her luminous skin catching flecks of light filtering through the canopy, her pointed ears perking at the nuance in his tone. What do you mean? She asked, squeezing his hand, the connection grounding her as curiosity bloomed. He turned to her, eyes intense, but before he could respond, a low rumble vibrated through the ground, not the familiar thrum of engines, but something deeper, primal, like the island itself awakening. The carvings began to glow faintly, mirroring the bioluminescence in her veins, and Zara felt a strange pull, an energy syncing with her alien physiology. Jax, she whispered, stepping back as the stone hummed, projections flickering to life, holographic ghosts from eons past, dancing in the air like spectral memories. Figures appeared, Zorathian explorers, their ships descending on this very island millennia ago, not on Earth as she'd assumed, but a waypoint in the stars, a neutral ground between worlds. The holograms unfolded a tale that twisted everything. Zara thought she knew, a powerful revelation that struck like a bolt from the void. These ancestors hadn't just visited, they'd interbred with indigenous shapeshifters, beings native to this island, guardians of ancient portals that linked galaxies. But the surprise deepened. The carvings revealed that Jax's lineage wasn't from Earth experiments at all. No, his abilities stemmed from those very Zorathian forebears, diluted through generations but reignited in him. He wasn't a random human, he was a descendant of her own people, a lost hybrid whose family had been stranded here cycles ago, their ship hidden in the island's core. The fishing boat story. A fabrication to hide his true origins. He'd been waiting, drawn by an instinctive call to protect the navigation core she carried, which wasn't just tech, but a key to reopening those portals. Zara's breath caught, her world tilting in a surge of shock that left her reeling. You're one of us? She stammered, her hand slipping from his as the holograms played on, showing Zorathian scouts shapeshifting to blend with locals, their offspring inheriting the gift. Jax's face paled, the twist hitting him as hard as her. He'd believed the lab story his whole life, pieced together from fragmented memories and old documents. But now, the truth unraveled. His curse was heritage, a bridge between Zorath and this forgotten outpost. The island wasn't random, it was a nexus, and her crash, orchestrated by subconscious signals from the carvings, pulling her here to reunite the bloodlines. The drama escalated as the projections intensified, revealing the powerful twist's full scope. The Netherians weren't after her core alone, they sought Jax, the last pure hybrid, whose blood could unlock weapons from the portals, tipping galactic wars. Her mission, unknowingly, had been a lure, her superiors suspecting such descendants existed but keeping her in the dark. Betrayal stung like venom, surprise layering upon surprise. "I didn't know," Jax whispered, his voice breaking, reaching for her as the ground trembled again, the island responding to the revelation. Cracks formed in the cave wall, revealing a hidden chamber beyond his family's ancient ship, intact, its systems humming to life at their presence. Zara staggered back, emotions warring within her, shock at the deception of her own people, awe at Jax's true nature, and a thrilling undercurrent of destiny. How could she have fallen for him so deeply, only to discover he was the key to everything? Her body, still sensitive from their earlier intimacies, flushed with a mix of confusion and renewed desire. This man, this hybrid, carried her world's essence in his veins. "All this time you were waiting for me?" she asked, her voice trembling, pointed ears flattening in vulnerability. The holograms faded, leaving them in charged silence, the air electric with the twist's aftermath. Jax stepped forward, his form rippling slightly, not a full shift, but a subtle glow matching hers, confirming the connection. "Not consciously. But now it makes sense. The pull I felt when you crashed, the way I had to protect you, it's in our blood." He cupped her face gently, thumbs brushing her cheeks, the touch igniting sparks that danced along her skin. The surprise settled into a profound intimacy, their bond no longer just passion born of isolation, but a cosmic entanglement. Yet, drama pulsed beneath. If her fleet arrived, they'd claim him as an asset, dissecting his secrets for power. As if summoned by the thought, the rumble grew. True engines this time, the fleet breaking atmosphere earlier than expected, scanners sweeping the island. Alarms blared from the hidden ship, warnings of incoming forces, not just Zorathian, but a mixed armada, Netherians having infiltrated her people's ranks. The twist deepened, her superiors were compromised, the mission a trap to capture hybrids like Jax. "We have to run," he urged, pulling her into the chamber where the ancient vessel awaited, its consoles lighting up at his touch, recognizing his bloodline. Zara hesitated, the surprise still swirling, but as lasers began to pepper the jungle outside, she nodded, trust reforming amid the chaos. They boarded the ship, a sleek relic blending Zorathian crystal tech with shapeshifter adaptability, its engines purring like a living entity. Jax interfaced with it effortlessly, his hybrid nature unlocking features long dormant, cloaking fields, portal jumps. As they lifted off, evading the first wave of pursuers, Zara watched the island shrink below, a nexus of secrets that had changed everything. In the cockpit, strapped in beside him, she reached for his hand again, the powerful twist forging a new path. "We're not just survivors anymore," she said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline. "We're the future." Jax squeezed back, a small smile breaking through the tension, but his eyes held shadows, the full implications of his heritage, the wars it could ignite. As they punched through the clouds, jumping toward uncharted stars, the drama of their escape unfolded, surprises lingering like stars in the void. But the twist wasn't done echoing. As the ship stabilized, a holographic message from his ancestors played, revealing one final layer. Zara's own lineage carried hybrid traces, her bioluminescence a subtle marker. They weren't strangers crashing together, they were soul-bound across generations, destined to reunite and reshape the galaxy. The realization hit her like a wave, surprise blooming into joy amid the peril, their intimacies now laced with eternal significance. They navigated the stars, evading pursuers in daring maneuvers. Jax shifting the ship's form mid-flight, mimicking asteroids or enemy vessels, his powers amplified by the tech. Zara manned weapons, her precision blasts covering their retreats, their synergy a thrilling force. In quiet moments between jumps, they stole touches, kisses that reaffirmed their bond, bodies entwining in the ship's quarters during lulls, passion a anchor in the storm. One such interlude, as alarms blared distantly, saw them pressed against the viewport, stars streaking by. Jax's hands explored her with familiar hunger, their joining urgent and profound, her glow merging with the ship's lights in a symphony of light. Climax came as a shared release, bodies trembling in unison, whispers of love exchanged in the afterglow. Yet, the pursuit intensified, Netherian-Zorathian hybrids closing in, their ships a swarm. Jax revealed more: the portals could seal the threats, but required a blood ritual theirs combined. The drama peaked in a nebula hideout, where they performed the ancient rite, hands clasped over a crystal altar, energies mingling in a surge that bordered ecstasy and power. As the portals activated, swallowing the enemy fleet in voids, peace descended. But the twist's surprise lingered with the galaxies linked anew. Jax and Zara stood as ambassadors, their hybrid child conceived in their island passions foretold as a unifier. The revelation confirmed by the ship's scans left them breathless, a future unfolding in wonder. They returned to Zorath not as scout and stray, but as legends, the twist rewriting their story into epic. In the crystal spires amid cheers, they embraced, ready for whatever surprises the stars held next. As the cheers of the Zorathian crowds swelled around them like a living wave, echoing off the towering crystal spires that pierced the violet skies, Zara felt a rush of exhilaration mixed with an undercurrent of unease that tightened her chest. She stood on the grand balcony of the central citadel, Jax by her side, his hand warm in hers amid the sea of adoring faces below her people, once so distant and protocol-bound, now hailing them as saviors who had sealed the portals and thwarted the Netherian incursion. The air hummed with energy, holographic banners unfurling in the wind, depicting their epic escape and the ritual that had bound their fates. Yet, as confetti like shards of light rained down, Zara's free hand instinctively drifted to her abdomen, where the ship's scans had confirmed the impossible, a life stirring within her, a hybrid child conceived in the heat of their island passions. The drama of their return was palpable, a crescendo of triumph laced with the weight of what came next, integrating Jax into a society that revered logic over the wild heart he embodied. Jax squeezed her hand, his stormy eyes scanning the crowd with a mix of awe and wariness, his human now hybrid form clad in a hastily tailored Zorathian robe that hugged his broad shoulders but bunched awkwardly at the sleeves, making him look like a warrior dressed for a costume party. "This is a lot," he muttered under his breath, his voice barely audible over the roaring applause. He shifted his weight, the robe's iridescent fabric shimmering unnaturally against his skin, and Zara couldn't help but stifle a chuckle at the sight: her legendary shapeshifter, conqueror of galaxies, fidgeting like a child in formal wear. The awkwardness of the moment heightened the drama. Here they were, fresh from evading armadas and unlocking ancient secrets, now thrust into the spotlight of Zorath's rigid ceremonies, where every gesture was scrutinized. A high counselor approached, her robes flowing like liquid starlight, her pointed ears adorned with glowing jewels that pulsed in time with her words. "Zara of the stars, Jax the shifter, our eternal gratitude. The portals are secure, the threats banished. But we must discuss the child." Her gaze dropped meaningfully to Zara's midsection, and the crowd hushed, the drama thickening like a gathering storm. Whispers rippled through the assembly, speculation about the hybrid heir, a being who could wield powers unseen in generations. Zara's cheeks warmed, her bioluminescent glow flaring faintly, an involuntary reaction that only amplified the awkwardness. How did one announce a pregnancy to an entire empire? Especially when the father was a man who'd been myth until yesterday? Jax cleared his throat, stepping forward with what he probably thought was regal poise, but his foot caught on the hem of his robe, sending him stumbling slightly into the counselor's path. The elder's eyes widened in surprise, and a titter of laughter escaped from the front rows of the crowd, humor slicing through the tension like an unexpected comet. "Whoa, steady there," Jax quipped, righting himself with a grin that charmed even the stoic counselor into a faint smile. "Guess I'm still getting used to these fancy threads. Back on the island, I fought naked half the time, way less tripping hazards." The crowd erupted in a mix of gasps and chuckles, the awkward admission humanizing him in a way that Zorath's formalities rarely allowed. Zara covered her mouth to hide her laugh, the drama of the revelation tempered by his earthy humor. But inside her heart raced. This was no island sanctuary anymore, and his casual candor could either endear him or ignite scandals. The counselor recovered gracefully, gesturing for them to follow her into the citadel's inner chambers, where holographic displays flickered with data from the portal's maps of linked worlds, energy signatures stabilized by their blood ritual. As they walked, flanked by guards whose armor hummed with subtle force fields, Zara leaned close to Jax. "You can't just mention fighting naked in front of the High Council," she whispered, her tone a blend of amusement and exasperation. But the awkward situation only deepened when they entered the chamber, and the doors sealed with a resonant thud, isolating them in a room that felt suddenly too small for the revelations brewing. Seated at a crystalline table that projected their genetic scans into the air-swirling helices of DNA blending Zorathian elegance with shapeshifter adaptability, the council revealed the next layer of drama. The child, the lead elder intoned, her voice grave, carries the potential to reopen portals at will. A unifier, yes, but also a target. Nithurian remnants have gone underground, plotting to capture the air. Zara's hand tightened on Jax's under the table, the news hitting like a warp jump triumph turning to peril in an instant. But the awkwardness peaked when Jax, trying to process, shifted unconsciously in his seat, his form rippling slightly into a more muscular build before snapping back, causing the robe to strain at the seams with an audible rip. The elders stared, one choking on her ceremonial tea, and Jax's face turned a shade of red that clashed hilariously with the robe's shimmer. Sorry, nerves make me bulky," he admitted, flexing awkwardly to adjust, drawing a reluctant laugh from the room. Zara bit her lip, the humor a brief respite in the mounting drama, her lover, the galaxy's hope, reduced to wardrobe malfunctions. As discussions intensified, mapping out protective measures, cloaked escorts, encrypted comms, even relocating to a secure nebula outpost, the drama heightened with personal stakes. Zara felt the child's first subtle stir, a flutter that made her gasp, drawing all eyes. "It's moving," she said, her voice trembling, and Jax's hand flew to her belly, his touch protective yet tentative, as if afraid his shapeshifter essence might overwhelm. The elders nodded sagely, but one younger counselor, perhaps too eager, suggested scanning the fetus immediately for anomalies. Jax bristled, his eyes flashing. "Anomalies? That's our kid you're talking about, not some lab experiment." The room tensed, awkward silence descending like a force field, the drama of cultural clash laid bare Zorath's analytical detachment versus Jax's fierce paternal instinct. To ease the moment, Jax cracked a joke, his humor a lifeline. "Hey, if the kid shifts into a dragon in there, at least it'll make delivery exciting, pop out breathing fire instead of crying." The elders exchanged puzzled glances, but Zara laughed outright, the sound breaking the ice, reminding everyone that beneath the galactic intrigue lay simple, human hybrid joys. Yet, the awkwardness lingered, how to blend their worlds when Zorath viewed emotions as variables, and Jax wore his heart like armor. The meeting stretched into hours, strategies unfolding like star charts, alliances with reformed Nithurian factions, training programs for Jax to harness his full hybrid powers. But drama surged when a holographic alert blared, a cloaked Nithurian probe detected nearby, scanning for hybrid signatures. "They're here already," the lead elder hissed, seals activating as the citadel went into lockdown. Zara's pulse raced, her hand clutching Jax's as guards rushed in. In the chaos, Jax shifted instinctively into a stealthy panther form to scout the halls. But in his haste, he knocked over a priceless artifact, a glowing orb that rolled comically across the floor, beeping indignantly. "Oops," his muffled voice echoed from the feline maw, paws batting it back awkwardly, drawing chuckles even from the stoic guards. The humor undercut the tension, but the drama remained enemies at the gates, their child the prize. They moved to a secure bunker deep within the spire, Jax reverting to human as they huddled with the council. Whispers of betrayal surfaced, some elders suspected internal leaks, heightening paranoia. Zara felt exposed, her pregnancy a vulnerability in this web of intrigue. "We can't hide forever," she said, voice steady despite the fear. Jax pulled her close, his embrace a anchor. "We won't. We'll fight smart like on the island, but with fancier toys." His wink added levity, but when a false alarm triggered sprinklers, dousing them all in a fine mist that made the robes cling awkwardly, the room dissolved into shared laughter, elders sputtering, Jax shaking off like a wet dog, Zara's glow sparkling through the damp. As the alert cleared a malfunction, not invasion, the group bonded over the mishap, humor forging unlikely alliances. But drama loomed, a formal banquet that night to announce the heir, where Jax would address the Empire. Me, speechifying? He groaned, practicing in a mirror, his words tumbling out in a mix of Earth slang and Zorathian formality that sounded hilariously off-key. Fellow starfolk, let's kick some portal butter, maintain cosmic harmony. Zara coached him, their awkward role reversal scout, teaching shifter etiquette, deepening their intimacy amid the stakes. The banquet hall glittered like a nebula, tables laden with exotic fares that Jax eyed warily. This glowing jelly edible or explosive? He quipped, poking it tentatively, only for it to jiggle back, startling him into dropping his fork with a clatter. Laughter rippled, but as he rose to speak, drama crested the crowd, hushed, eyes on this outsider hero. His words, raw and heartfelt, wove tales of their journey, the child's promise, but awkwardness struck when he shifted mid-sentence for emphasis, his voice deepening comically. "We stand united," roar. The accidental growl echoed, but it rallied them, turning mishap into legend. Yet, as toasts rang out, a shadow fell, a disguised Nithurian assassin infiltrated, laser concealed. Drama exploded in a flash, Jax sensing it, shifting to shield Zara, the blast grazing his arm. Chaos ensued, guards converging, but Jax subdued the intruder with a bear hug, literally, his form enveloping the foe in furred restraint. "Gotcha, slippery snake," he growled. The awkward pin looking like a comedic wrestling match. Humor and heroism, but the attack heightened fears the child targeted, their peace fragile. In the aftermath, alone in their quarters, Zara tended his wound, the drama intimate now. "You keep saving me," she whispered, lips brushing his. Jax grinned through the pain. Perk of being part beast, quick healer, slow learner on fancy dinners. Their laughter mingled with kisses, passion reigniting despite the peril, bodies entwining in a reaffirmation of life. As days blurred into preparations, training Jax in Zorathian ways, fortifying defenses, the awkward situations piled on him, botching diplomatic simulations, shifting into birds during meetings, causing feathered flurries. Humor kept them sane, but drama built toward a climax, intelligence of an Nithurian armada massing, drawn by the heir's power. Zara, belly swelling subtly, stood resolute beside him. "We'll face them," she said, hand on her bump. Jax nodded, pulling her close. "Family first, let's show 'em what hybrids can do." The stars awaited, drama and delight intertwined, their story far from over. As the stars beckoned beyond the crystal spires of Zorath, their vast tapestry a promise of endless horizons, Zara and Jax stood united on the precipice of a new era, their hands clasped in a grip that symbolized not just love, but the fusion of worlds once thought irreconcilable. The Nithurian armada's shadow loomed large in the intelligence reports, a fleet of sleek, venomous ships massing at the galaxy's edge, drawn inexorably by the beacon of their unborn child's potential. Yet, in that moment of quiet before the storm, as the citadel's lights dimmed to mimic a gentle twilight, Zara felt a profound peace settle over her. Jax's embrace was her anchor, his warmth seeping through the elegant robes they'd both donned for the council's final strategy session, his scent a blend of earth and stars, reminding her of their island beginnings. "Family first," he'd said, and those words echoed now as they prepared to face the onslaught, not as fugitives, but as architects of destiny. The days that followed blurred into a whirlwind of preparation, the drama of impending battle weaving through every decision like threads in a grand tapestry. Zara, her belly now a gentle swell that drew reverent glances from her people, coordinated with the elders, her sharp mind dissecting fleet formations and portal vulnerabilities. Jax, ever the adaptable force, trained alongside Zorath's elite guardians, his shape-shifting abilities turning drills into spectacles, morphing into ethereal birds to scout holographic simulations or mighty beasts, to test defensive barriers. There were awkward moments, of course, like when he accidentally shifted into a comical, oversized rodent during a high-stakes briefing, scattering data pads and eliciting laughter that eased the tension. "Hey, even heroes have off days," he'd quip, his grin diffusing the embarrassment, and Zara would pull him aside later, their shared humor evolving into tender kisses that reaffirmed their bond amid the chaos. As the armada drew nearer, detected by long-range sensors that painted the void with ominous red blips, the couple found solace in stolen interludes. In the quiet of their private quarters, Overlooking Zorath's luminous oceans, they would entwine, bodies moving in a rhythm honed by passion and trust. Jax's hands, strong yet genital, traced the curve of her changing form, his lips whispering promises against her skin as they lost themselves in each other. It was more than physical release, it was a celebration of life, a defiance against the darkness encroaching. Zara's bioluminescent glow would flare softly, illuminating their union, her pointed ears twitching at his every touch, while he marveled at the miracle growing within her, their child. A symbol of unity that could heal fractured galaxies. The climax came under a canopy of stars, the battle unfolding in the vast expanse near the sealed portals. Zorath's fleet, augmented by reformed allies from distant worlds, met the Netherians in a dazzling display of light and fury. Lasers crisscrossed the void like shooting stars, ships twisting in elegant dances of evasion and assault. Jax piloted their command vessel, the ancient hybrid ship from the island, its systems responding to his touch as if alive. Zara, stationed at tactical, her mind a whirlwind of calculations, directed volleys that shattered enemy shields. Drama pulsed through every maneuver, the narrow escapes, the heart-stopping moments when a blast grazed their hull, the triumphant cheers as Netherian cruisers imploded in cascades of debris. In the heat of it, Jax shifted the ship itself, a feat unlocked by his deepening hybrid powers, morphing its form to mimic an enemy dreadnought and sow confusion in their ranks. "Hold on," he shouted, and Zara gripped her console, a laugh escaping despite the peril, the awkward thrill of trusting his wild instincts paying off as they slipped through the blockade. Their child stirred within her, as if sensing the chaos, and she placed a hand on her belly, whispering, "We're fighting for you." The battle raged for hours, alliances holding firm, but the turning point came when Jax, interfacing directly with the portals via the blood ritual's lingering energy, reopened a sliver just enough to ensnare the Netherian flagship in a vortex of its own making. The enemy commander's holographic plea flickered on their screen: surrender, or oblivion, and with a collective breath, peace terms were struck, the armada scattering like shadows before dawn. Victory washed over them like a cleansing wave, the fleets docking amid cheers that spanned systems. Back on Zorath, as medals were bestowed and holograms broadcast their tale across the stars, Zara and Jax retreated to a serene garden atop the citadel, where bioluminescent flowers bloomed in eternal night. The awkward adjustments of their early days had given way to seamless harmony. Jax now navigated Zorathian customs with ease, his humor a bridge to her people's reserved hearts, while she embraced the wild unpredictability he brought. Their child arrived months later, under a sky alive with auroras, a girl with Zara's luminous skin and Jax's stormy eyes, her first cry shifting into a melodic chirp that hinted at powers yet to unfold. Years unfolded like pages in a cherished book, their family growing amid a galaxy reborn. The portals, now gateways of alliance rather than war, facilitated trade and cultural exchanges, with hybrids like their daughter leading the way, ambassadors who blurred boundaries and fostered understanding. Jax and Zara traveled often, revisiting the island nexus where it all began, its beaches a sacred reminder of isolation turned to connection. There, under twin moons, they'd recount their story to their children, laughter mingling with the waves as Jax demonstrated shifts that delighted and awed. In quieter moments, as they lay entwined, watching stars wheel overhead, Zara would trace the lines of his face, marveling at the journey. From strangers on a deserted shore to this, she'd whisper, her voice full of wonder. Jax would pull her close, his kiss a seal on their epic. Love finds a way across any void. Their legacy endured, a testament to humanity's indomitable spirit. Yeah, indeed, woven with alien grace, proving that in the vast cosmos, the greatest adventures were those of the heart. And so, as galaxies spun on, their story became legend, inspiring countless souls to reach beyond the stars, embracing the unknown with open arms. In the end, it wasn't just survival, it was transcendence, a good ending that birthed infinite beginnings.